be on life right now, so yeah, like it's time to get back to work. So I think I just okay. So today too, I won't be showing my face because I'm outside, and I think last time we were discussing about delays, right? And we did a lot of important stuff with delays, but today, I mean, what is the date today? Today's the day 6, if I were to be honest. Right, so we could have a progress to day 6. Right, and we still thinking, but I don't think so. Like last time we were at delays. Where were we at last time? I mean, if I go here and think in systems, I'm not prepared today because my system works so well. Yeah. So we were talking about efficiency, and in those efficiency, we talked about how do we have hierarchies. Yeah, there were 3: self-organization, hierarchies, and resilience. We talked about these 3 things and how these 3 things actually create what they do end up creating most of the time, right? So that's what we pretty much did, right? So we cannot call this delay, but we can call like rules for system or efficiency in system. We can call it that, but I think the better way to call it is like this is self-organization, but how societies and communicate. Everyone starts to actually do whatever the role they are actually think are they better at from their identities and from their past experiences. So this is like organization and how systems organize so well. Like yeah, why systems work so well. So we can talk in terms of efficiency because this talks about like why systems are so efficient, right? This is what it teaches us about that. So I should call it a concept of efficiency, right? So it should be something like efficiency, right? So there's some efficiency, right? Yes. So we discussed like why systems work so well. Yeah, and then they talked about like the nature. So from it talks about like elasticity, the ability to recover strength, spirits. Yeah, I think it still didn't work out. Yeah, I got that then. All right. It doesn't really matter. Like I'd say resilience providing such loops operating through different mechanism at different time scales for redundancy one kicking with another. Restore or rebuild feedback loop is the resilience is still high level matter. I think, but the thing it lagged is because it wasn't giving us the exact definition that we wanted, right? Because like Donella has this problem with her, right? I mean, she like loves to romanticize the idea, even if the idea is not that really competent or something. So she's like, oh, this is how great this is, but it's not really as great as you end up thinking it is, right? And the internet is really trash today. I have to accept that because here's not working for some reason. I have to check it out if it's still working or not. No, I'm not able to get much network here. That's why streaming here will be hard. Explain. I think we were like in cybernetics or something. Like that's what we were talking. Like yeah. Like where was the chat? I mean, I must have it in either like health coding, sustaining multiple systems. Did we actually had that? No, it's ripped. Informative edge. Did we talk about belief tracking? No. Maybe in cybernetics then modeling life systems. Oh yeah, maybe this was the like the chat that we had from there, right? I would send that to you too. Yeah. No, this wasn't the one. A Seva feat that can restore or rebuild loops is resilient at a so high level meta, if you will. Even higher meta resilience comes from feedback loops that align, create, design, and evolve even more complex related structural system that can do self-organization, right? There always limits to resilience, but I mean, if I just search that word up, I mean, we should be able to find that, of course. Wait a sec. Resilience. Minimal stock. Okay, yeah. 11 June. Right, that was about 4 days ago. Persistence under disturbance. Okay, where is the chat? It was oh yeah, it was like here. I should have added this into cybernetics or maybe like pure biology or something, but this wasn't really about biology, and I didn't actually create a project named systems thinking. That's why I didn't have that there. Persistence under disturbance, and it's like ability to create new feedback loops when old feedback loops are kind of destroyed or ruined or something like that within itself with like a problem. Like and your resilience systems can be very dynamic, short-term oscillation or periodic outbreaks or long cycle of succession. Climax collapse maybe in fact the normal condition. That's actually restores. Yeah, so it's an efficient way to keep effective variables within bound, right? Like in cybernetics too, we have this. Like so in cybernetics, the main thing or the main concept is like you have effective variables from like body temperature, heat, like glucose level, blood sugar level, and how is like those effective variables are constantly being threatened by the disturbances in the surroundings. So like you have like wind, climate, weather changes, and hunger and different stuff like that that's happening in the environment, which is called disturbances, and how those disturbances actually keep these effective variables, which is like body temperature, blood sugar level, uncertainty levels in the brain, which is like if you go to the friction-free energy principle route, and you'll have okay, brain is constantly trying to reduce uncertainty, so there's some uncertainty level it's trying to maintain, like a model of the world. So that's another thing that it's trying to maintain. It's trying to maintain glucose level. It's trying to maintain all these kind of different kind of stuff, the skin health, the eyes health, or something like that. So how the disturbances from the environment is constantly affect those things that are there. And that's what actually tells us about this. So the thing is like when it comes to resilience, it's like more like how much can the disturbances cause the um the bounds to actually exceed. So for example, let's say the range between for the skin health or something is like somewhere about 100 to 50, right? So it should be between 50 and 100. If it's over the 100, it's going to decay or something. If it's below the 100, let's say it's going to like get solidified or something, right? So it's like if how should we maintain, and that maintenance is what we call regulation, is like how do you maintain effective variables within bound, right? So that in itself is like another thing. Genetic engineer want to be like, yeah, so they did this with this cow experiment or something, and what they did in itself was kind of awesome. So what they did, so injection of genetically engineered bio growth hormone increases the milk production of the cow without proportionally increase the cow food intake. The hormones divert some of the cow metabolic energy from the, so it's like how some of the metabolic energy that is required to maintain is being redirected into just producing milk, and what causes, right? So we had resilience, we have specific amount of energy, and we are trying to maintain feedback loops, right? But when it becomes hard to maintain certain level of metabolic energy or certain level of milk production, the system disintegrates, or if not, and it doesn't replicate. That means it's like how a system does not maintain itself, but maintains replications, uncertainty, and different kind of stuff. So it's like ability to maintain different kind of feedback loop, and resilience is like how can you maintain different kind of, and redundancy come into place, because if you see multiple paths to the same functions, it's like if an organism can actually maintain multiple paths to the same function, I mean it has multiple ways to actually reduce uncertainty about certain specific feedback loops that are part of it, it persists, right? And also self-organization, like how body starts to self-organize, autonomous restructuring. I think a lot of self-organization is not like when it comes to biological, no one actually reorganize themselves or something. It's more likely because of evolution. But when it comes to industries or when it comes to businesses or markets, there is definitely some sort of self-organization going on. And then there's hierarchy, distributed regulation across scale. Hierarchy is pretty much more what is actually given more salience, if not importance. So it's like you have reproduction, but as long as survival is not maintained, like reproduction is not going to persist, because like you need the basic survival to even reproduce and grow a baby. So if the reproduction is like, if you want to maintain reproduction, then like, yeah, so if you want to maintain reproduction, oh, I got disturbed there for a sec. If you want to maintain reproduction, I mean you have to maintain some sort of a basic energy levels, and so that's how like ability to hierarchy. What is more prioritized? Like the body energy prioritized more over the, but with the high indefinitely, however, without multiple species interacting. I think there's a lot of background noise. Let me just remove all that. Oh man, it's kind of hard maintaining, and that's why we have these feedback loops that persist over time, right? Now this will kind of like a lot of it. So it's like the service, like, so you guys cannot hear it because of the, but honestly, I don't like the birds. Who likes the birds? Yeah. Such as cancer and heart diseases come from breakdown of resilience mechanism that repair DNA, keep blood vessels flexible. Ecological disaster in many places comes from loss of resilience. A species may remove. And here's they also talked about like how if removing the parts of the system, if you do not understand, so you shouldn't remove the part of the system you do not understand. Cell chemistry, biology are just toxic. The large organization of all kinds from property, the governments lose their resilience. because of the feedback by which they sense and respond to their environment have to travel through too many layers to deal with. More on that in a minute when we come to hierarchies. I think of resilience as a plateau upon which the system can play, perform. A resilient system has a big plateau, a lot of safe and waiting wonder with gentle elastic walls that will bounce it back off once it's near the dangerous age. Elasticity is like how, okay, so we have so many different kind of foods and consumption of it, and how these different kind of foods, it's elasticity, how we can consume or generate energy from multiple kind of stuff and multiple kind of food, right? It has done 100 times before and crashes. Preserve enhanced system. But also builds up body internal resistance it behind 8 programs that do more than give food of many. I mean, you should get also hear it if these voice doesn't compete with mine. So I mean, okay, there's no Dexter body, so it doesn't actually capture that audio for some reason, which is kind of fun. All right, I suppose. Yeah. So let's just mute it. I mean, I don't know which. Okay, yeah, it's capturing it. But yeah, yeah, you guys can hear it, so that's actually good for everyone because you guys can actually hear the background noise, so you don't get the unnecessary appear to be the most use of accident, of course, and which only change the environment during a hurt and the real thing is actually, but it's given by different analytical discoveries. Yeah. So we also talked about self-organization and hierarchies. Now we were on the topic of hierarchies. Proceed and ad infinitum, right? In the process of creating new structures and increasing complexity, one thing often generated hierarchy. The world, at least the part of human things they understand, is organized by subsystem into larger system, into even larger subsystems. I mean, this is one of the most important things that Allah is telling us about. A cell in your liver, a cell in your liver is a subsystem of an organism. You are a subsystem of a family of things, and so forth. I mean, this is not one of the best ways. One of the best ways you can understand is through the code and different stuff like that, and how subsystems goes on to interact, and how there could be so much intricate part to it. So, arrangement of systems and subsystems is called the hierarchy. Corporate systems, military systems, ecological systems, economic systems, living organisms are arranged in hierarchies. It's not saying that it's not so, because hierarchies kind of like define what every system is doing in relation to other, and there's communication definitely going on between these hierarchies. That's why there's like information exchange, right? So if you do not have an information exchange, you cannot know what some part of the group or some part of the subsystems that is may not be that important, but still important for the higher functions or higher levels of systems to function. Right, and it's always these small, because like in complex systems, a lot of times when intricate, like, you know, when complexity explodes, some part of the system, because if you can see, if I can draw that using this, which I pretty much think I cannot draw, because like but I would still try to create a new Excalibur, and I'm like gonna, well, I think, yeah, you do that by using this, right? I'm not gonna do that actually. So if I just draw, and if I just add something to it, right? If I just add like I really don't like the background, so let's get it black. No, not this. Yeah, dark mode. Right. So Control Z, and now we can just have a lighter stroke, because I think the stroke is too dense, right? So now if you were to say this part connects to this part, connects to this part, connects to this part, connects to this part, and connects to this part. So if you just trying to say, okay, this part is dependent on this part to function, this part is dependent on this part to function, this part is dependent on this and this part to function, this part is dependent on this, and this part is dependent on this one and that one. So now what happened in complexity, if I just take this one path out of the picture, let's say I just decided one day that I do not like this one, and let's say because of natural circumstances or disturbances, this part just happens to like get destroyed, let's just say, like for example, right? So now what happens, like these different parts that were connected onto it cannot properly function, and that's just what intricate design happens. That's why you have so much complexity in humans, and that's why natures offer redundancy. You never have one lungs, you never have one kidney, you never have one eye. It's like the more the multiple systems are there, the higher the chances of, like, you know, because even though it takes a lot of energy and a lot of time to actually sustain these multiple systems, even though one systems would have been more than enough, but nature, if not nature, evolution still goes on to take care of multiple systems, because that just increases survival efficiency of the system trying to constantly dominated by disturbances. All right, so you can say like a normal explanation, Nation, right? Hierarchy, a fable. There was once a watchmaker. Yeah, importance. But I think the watchmaker example was pretty trash because they talked about like a denser and stronger relationship between subsystems. Everything is connected to everything else, but not equally. Some people in the same university department talk to each other more than they talk to people in the interview. Deliver are in closer communication with them than they are with other cells. The cell that constitutes whatever are in closer communication with each other cells to the heart. Difference in the links between within and between each level of hierarchy are designed right. Feedback being is minimized. No level is overwhelmed within the systems like efficiency and resilience. And now it's like how multiple parts goes on to take certain sort of functions, right? And how they communicate to create a direction. Like let's say because it's yeah it's like multiple paths. So it's like every function does something the other party may or may not understand at all, but it together they end up doing something that they wouldn't have done them by themselves. It's like how connection leads to more complexity, which leads to insane progress, which would have been otherwise impossible. That's what education systems does, right? There's so many education institutes out there, and they actually progress the so like technological advancements like in every different field, if not like just biology or evolutionary science or just so now what happens when multiple systems push through the multiple directions, progress explodes. That's why we have nonlinear growth in economic and in terms of like understanding. And for the last couple hundred years, we have been growing non-linearly. Like one should not use the side of it that bind each other to the subsystems, right? Yeah, and this is what they still talk about. Like, I think Danella has a preference for it. Like, this I like what was his name? Ashby also has a preference for biology. Everyone's trying to explain these kind of complex systems using biology. How one will be first occurring. You have a low disease, right? A doctor usually can treat it without pain. Yeah, because they isolate a systems, but a system's effects on other systems cannot be degraded. Because I mean, we have this problem where we kind of like think that systems are not interconnected when they are definitely interconnected. No level up at the end of the night. These are just explained rules, however, to reinforce themselves, setting back to consider the whole lot. Maybe your jump explosives leads to the chemical that is done originate from malfunctioning for DNA. How multiple systems are constantly influencing each other. Right. This is what it's exactly talking about. Right. What do you need to think about may change over time. A self-organizing system involves new degrees of hierarchy and integration. The energy systems of nation were once were completely decomposable one from another. There is no longer two people whose thinking has not evolved as a fast energy economy has maybe shocked to describe dependent. They have become on research and decision halfway around the world. I mean, what is Daniel is trying to say here? Open this in a new branch. Actually, tell me what Donella is trying to say here because she's like talking about how industrialization or something like because it's talking about we need to like this is exactly I'm sending you a screenshot. Tell me what she's talking about. Okay. Okay, tell me what Donella is. Okay. Okay, tell me what Donella is talking about here. Now you can just take a step. Oh yeah, speaking kind of like reduces insults and that's it. She's most probably taking something from economics because she happens to be like an economist, but I do not get what she's trying to say here. Because here we are talking about self-organization, hierarchies, and resilience, and how the more you have the ways to actually maintain, like feedback loops, the more resilient the system is. Like the more the variety or the power it has to actually maintain those feedback loops, the more resilient it is. And then we talk about how they organize by themselves, and then we talk about hierarchy, which probably talks about how important something is. So what I want you to do is like explain what she's trying to say here. But don't give me too big or unnecessary of an explanation. Man, internet is so trash. Everyone wants me to get a plus. A system grow, they naturally create new layers of organization to handle increasing complexity. That's the entire point. Ah. Yeah, so as complexity create new levels of as to handle increasing complexity. That's the entire example. Self-employed person. Initially, one person does everything. As worker, they hire helpers, not her. Because complexity forces emerge a non-profit. Initially, a few volunteers. Leading becomes messy. Coordination becomes we need them. Hierarchy again. Complexity creates structure. Cells and money. Just dividing cells. Some spell specializes. Yeah, but I think she has like a some transport nutrients, some coordinate signal. Now you have a circulatory system, nervous system hierarchy emerged. But I think this is like a romanticization of the very idea that hierarchy emerges naturally. I mean, it does, but it's just like a higher form of regulation, just a better, efficient way to actually coordinate it in such a way that the information transfer can persist, rather than goes on to say that you definitely need a hierarchy, right? I'm so scared. Cells in the body usually just dividing cells. Some spell special, some coordinate. You mean by energy systems? The first years ago, a country energy system was run. Today, oil from one country, gas from another, rare earth, semiconductors from another. The global system is made more interconnected in a layer. A decision made thousands of kilometers away can affect you. Hierarchy and education can allow you. The key idea of OPAS is self-organizing using great hierarchies. When increasing complexity, you can no longer imagine the current level of organization. If growth creates complexity, complexity creates hierarchy. Than every worker brain more important than every cell. The higher level exists because coordination becomes. My dear, she's making a universal system here. When a system becomes large enough, the entire levels of organization to remain coherent. Yeah. You can watch self-organizing system from hierarchies. Self-employed person gets them. Number organizing affects many member, bigger budget. Now someone organize all of this cluster within itself. Hierarchies evolve from lowest level, from the pieces to the whole, from cell to organs to organisms, from individual to team, from actual production to management of production. No, but that's if the body soul breaks free from the hierarchical functions, start multiplying widely, we call it cancerous. When a subsystem is goal dominated, the expensive total system goal, the result is sub-optimization. Just a nation, of course, and the problem too much central. If brain controlled each cell so tightly that the cell would never die. Sort of rules and regulation prevents the unit of faculty from exploring fields of knowledge for the purpose of the universities. But how it limits state transition by defining what can exist or what should persist. I mean, it's all about limiting state transitions in a way. So a lot of time when rules are happening, it's just trying to limit the state transition so that certain sort of state transitions can be achieved, which burns energy efficiently. If you try to combine this with the physics, if not a different kind of stuff, right? I mean, we have so much different kind of stuff here, man. Right, so freedom and responsibility of subsystems and the total system, there must be enough central control to achieve coordination towards the overall system. Enough attack function and self-organizing. Yeah, man, yeah. I think, okay, so why systems, so they give three reasons why systems are efficient. Resilient, because they have multiple feedback loops, so that's how they can maintain stock efficiently. Self-organization, how they organize themselves, right? And I guess as soon as there's self-organization, there's some hierarchy or some form of constraints on strange transitions and some kind of so like which emerges or creates complexity in itself, which is like, yeah, imagine what these properties of a system. But I think this is philosophy right now at this point. This is her perception of how systems function, not exactly how systems function. When he talks about feedback, that was exactly how systems function, and that's when you get into philosophical here. I don't like it, right? Why systems survive? I think it's more about like, like rigorness and like rigor or something. The most none of us are ignorant. None of us are ignorant. Accusation of always involve the relevance of almost basic. If the world instructs us first of all that the world was created and the knowledge of it. The simple system in zoo maybe perplexed you with their behavior. Yeah, I really agree with this line. It's like, you only know a part of the actual chain of the actual reality, and everyone is like, the entirety of the civilization is built upon layered abstraction, right? So no one knows anything, no one understands anything. Everyone just understands a part of it, and they uses that part of that what they understand to actually kind of like make sense of reality, which a lot of time or the most of the time doesn't even make sense in like, in a lot of different kind of situations or circumstances, I suppose. Oh man, it's heating bad. Simple system in the zoo have perplexed you with their behavior. They continues to surprise me, although I've been teaching them for years. Oh, they continue. You and I. About the dynamic. Reminding me of three things. Everything we think we know about the world is a model. Every word, every language is a model. All maps, statistics, books, database, equation are models. So are the ways I picture the world in my mental model. None of these is or ever will be the real world. Yeah, it's like your representation of reality, which kind of absolutely agree with Friston free energy principle. Right, remember what Friston says? It's probabilistic Bayesian updating, right? So Nodella is right, but I hardly doubt that she have ever read neuroscience or something. Our models usually have a strong congruence with the world. That is why we have such a indisposed fear. Congruence. What does she mean by that word? Control C. Congruence. C. Congruence. So we have agreement or compatibility. Ah. Around this. However, and conversely, our models fall far short of representing the world fully. Since then, why we are regularly surprised now how we keep track of only a few variables at one time. But this is the thing: variables explodes, and there are some dominant variables we need to actually. We often draw a logical conclusion from accurate assumptions or logically conclude from inaccurate consumption. Most of us, for instance, are surprised by the amount of growth an exponential process can generate. Few of us can how to damp oscillation in a system. In short, this book is poised on duality. We know a tremendous amount of our world, but not nearly enough. Our knowledge is amazing, even more, so we can improve our understanding, but we cannot make it perfect. At both sides of this duality, because I've learned much from the studies of system. Everything we think we know about the world is all they have strong meaning with the world. I'm short of representation. That's why we actually go with the compression, right? The most accurately you can compress the most amount of complexity. That is like the greatest form of this. And then comes some of the reasons why dynamic systems are often surprising. Alternatively, some of the ways a mental model fails into account of real world. At least those ways that can actually see from systems perspective is one. You can navigate well and interconnected feedback down the road unless I see the short-term manipulating behavior and structures. Defaults unbounded rationality unless you take into account limiting factors, non-realities, and theories. Likely the mysterious must design a true system if you don't respect the properties of results. hierarchy. This is the bad news or the good news, depending on your need of control. The world is meaning to lie that represents that even if you understand all these things. You may be surprised, well, less often, but you may still be surprised. Be willing if it's a system is a big black box of which we cannot want the lot or we can bring in and what comes out. Preventing inputs and output pairs related by parameters permit sometimes to relate an input and output and a state. Is a relation good? Stable into predicting may be able. If it fails us, heaven forbid. Broke. With systems foolish by pretending themselves. Seeing the world as the series of the daily news tells of elections, battle, political arguments, disasters, shock market booms, suppressment of our ordinary conversation into a specific happening at a specific time and place. Events are over floods, a Dow Jones International average hits 10,000, oil is discovered, a forest is split, events are outputs, moment by moment from black box to the same. Events can be spectacular crashes, assassination, great victories, terrible tragedies, they hope our emotions. Although we have seen many thousands of them on our TV screens or on the front page of the paper, each one is different enough from the last to keep us fascinated, just as we never lose our fascination with chaotic twists and turns. It's endlessly engrossing to take in the world of a series of events and constantly surprising because the worst in the world is almost our explanatory value. Yep, because the thing is, like, when you live in the moment or when you're like, because you do not know, it doesn't generate any predictive value. That's the point. Because if you oh man, it's like it's such a one of the things, because a lot of time people are actually into the moment. All right, so what happens is that they never actually understand. Not always the most. We are less likely to be surprised if we can see how events accumulate into dynamic patterns of behavior. Team is on a winning streak. Awareness of the river is increasing. See how events accumulate into dynamic patterns of behavior. The team is on the winning streak. The variance of the river is increasing with higher flood waters during the rains, flows during droughts. The Dow can become trending up for 2 years. Discoveries of oil are becoming less frequent and increasing. The behavior of a system is performance over time. Its growth, stagnation, decline, oscillation, randomness, or evolution. If the news did a better job of putting events into historical context. Yeah, I asked, please do not speak, right? Like, guys, wait a sec. Yeah, so I'm back. Right, so when a system thinker encounters a problem, the first thing he or she does is look for data, time graph, or history of system. I think I need to go for the dinner, guys. I'll be back, or like maybe we'll be only streaming today once. So I guess, yeah, it's already 32 minutes and it's not long, but got no choice.